Okay, noting that it's 7 o'clock, I'll call this meeting of the Community and Economic Development Authority to order. The next item on our agenda is a roll call.
Cleary? Fairchild?
Here.
Hamilton?
Here.
Hardy? Potts?
Here.
Udell?
Here.
Wheeler?
Here.
Everybody is present and accounted for.
All right. Next item on our agenda is approval of the minutes. Since we did not have a February meeting, this is actually the minutes from January 26th of 2023. Those were included in your packet. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The minutes are approved. Item number 4 is public appearances for non-agenda items. I don't believe we have anyone in the council chambers for a non-agenda item. Mike and Joyce, I assume no one registered? Okay. Moving on to item number 5, resolutions and ordinances. We have none, so we are on to item number 6 with Mr. Gary Becker from Becker Professional Services for our MAD Rep update. Mike, I'll turn it over to you just for a quick introduction.
Sure. I'll give a quick introduction here. And MADREP is our regional economic development partnership that we're a part of here in the Madison region. And they've been working on looking at an economic development sector strategy. That also includes some analysis with regards to business, commercial, and industrial parks in the greater Madison region, the A County area of the MADREP region. And we thought that this information and kind of an overview and summary of their findings would be helpful for this group to hear. And kind of learn about as we try and position Fitchburg within the marketplace, especially with business, commercial, and industrial areas. So Gary graciously agreed to get up early this morning. He was one of the authors and consultants that worked on the report, and he's going to kind of give us an overview, and then we can open it up for questions from this group. But this information will be really helpful, especially as we're just launching the 2 neighborhood plans, both South Stoner Prairie and Greenfield, and then as we look to a major comp plan update, hopefully by 2025. So with that, we'll turn it over to Gary. Good morning, Gary.
Thanks, Mike. Good morning, Michael. Thank you. Nice to be with everybody this morning. I'm going to try to share my screen here. Let's see here. Let's see. Okay. Can everybody see? I'm going to make it full screen here. There. Can everybody see that?
Yes, we have it up on the screen.
Perfect. Thank you. So the MADREP, Madison Region Economic Partnership, asked the Federal Economic Development Administration for a grant to help us understand why we're not successful at the competitive RFP process. So when companies are looking to expand, and this happens on a global, national, and regional basis, they typically go out and look for a number of sites that could meet their needs, and they narrow that down. But when they start that process, they send out a request for information to identify sites that could be good candidates for them to consider. And every week, the state of Wisconsin gets dozens of these RFIs. They distribute them down to the regions. Sometimes the regions receive these RFIs directly. And most of them require quite a bit of work. Michael and Joyce can attest to that. They've done their share of submittals for these things. But it's very difficult for our region to find sites that meet the criteria. And it's very rare for us to actually land one of these that we've submitted. And so MADREP wanted to understand why that was. And so that's the underlying premise for this study. A big part of the study involved conducting a thorough inventory of the business and industrial parks that are within our region. And with that, I'll just get started here by flipping the slide. And so the project deliverables for this report included a detailed business park inventory and site attributes that included total site acreage, the largest parcels available, how far it was, how far it is to the interstate, what's the residential population within a certain radius of that site, what's the child care provider situation, what's the workforce within a 30-minute drive, how many improved and unimproved acres, are there contiguous acres for expansion, is the site certified? So these are all attributes that site selectors are looking for, right? In a lot of the sites that they want to evaluate. The other deliverable on this was preparing a relative summary of each of the parks. So that involves how well do each of these parks do in terms of meeting the prominent criteria for this regional larger size sites that are the subject of these RFIs. So we developed a typology for the business parks. We identified local business parks that primarily serve a local market, those that serve a regional market, a national market, and a global market. Now, this is a national typology from the site selector industry. So for local sites, parcel sizes generally range from a half an acre to 20 acres. For sites that are considered regional scale, that is, they're large enough to serve larger site requirements. Those sites are generally in the 10 to 100 acre size. When we get to a larger national scale site, this involves sector specific specialization, typically has medium to high capacity infrastructure, and they're generally located in medium to large urban communities. And so this is what we're missing out on. We're missing out on the regional and national scale. The global scale, we're probably not geographically situated. That requires access to global markets. Typically, these are on ports or places that have very high capacity infrastructure for large shipping and distribution capacity. So the focus of our report is on this regional national scale in this chart. And that's where we're missing. We've got great local assets here to serve a local market. It's the regional and national market that we seem to be missing out on. We also collected a lot of data to update the target sector analysis that the Madison region had done back in 2019. And we looked at workforce characteristics and then trends. There's quite a bit of trend analysis in this report. So some of our recommendations coming out of here to get to the chase, and I should pause for just a second to say that there are quite a few slides here, and I know your time is limited, and no one wants to hear somebody go on and on and on about economic data. So if we get to a point where I'm talking too long, please let me know and I can cut to the chase. So some of the recommendations include how to maintain and expand our regional inventory of readily developable sites, how to increase the capacity of public and institutional entities in the region to invest in sites, infrastructure, and site amenities, how to increase regional workforce capacity, increasing regional organizational alignment, and then further develop our regional market, both for planning, internal planning, and for our external presence. One of the areas that became clear after we started working on this is how our region is structured to address these kinds of issues. And the chart that's on the screen here is a typical kind of regional scale context for economic development. On the left side, we've got the state government at the top. The state government authorizes the establishment of regional planning commissions. Regional planning commissions serve the function of data collection, analysis, map making, coordination, defining urban service areas, regional land use planning, regional transportation, regional housing, and they're intended to be advisory to local governments within their region. The state government also has a state economic development entity. It's the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. Both regional planning commissions and WEDC coordinate with regional economic development organizations in order to fulfill the missions focused on economic development. Both the Regional Planning Commission and the Regional Economic Development Organization have a relationship with local governments in those regions. And for the Regional Economic Development Organization, their primary role is the coordination of regional economic development strategy, branding, and marketing of the region, and the monitoring the supply of business sites. So there's a kind of a three-legged stool or four-legged stool here that involves regional planning, WEDC, the Regional Economic Development Corporation, and the local government jurisdictions. Now, at the federal level, this is all tied together through an economic development district that's established by the EDA, the Federal Economic Development Administration. Economic development districts are multi-jurisdictional entities commonly composed of multiple counties and in certain cases cross state borders. They help lead the locally based, regionally driven economic development planning process that leverages the involvement of the public, private, and nonprofit sectors to establish a strategic blueprint for regional collaboration. The Economic Development District is responsible for preparing a CEDS, a comprehensive economic development strategy for the region. And this is a strategy-driven plan for regional economic development. The CEDS is the result of a regionally owned planning process designed to guide the economic prosperity and resiliency of an area or region. It provides a coordinating mechanism for individuals, organizations, local governments, and private industry to engage in a meaningful conversation and debate about the economic direction of their region. So overall, what this slide is showing us is that at the regional level, we've got a number of organizations with different responsibilities to take on different aspects of coordinating regional activity. We've got WEDC, the Regional Planning Commission, a regional economic development organization, and local governments. And their coordination is all tied up at the regional level by this umbrella, this federal umbrella, and the Economic Development District. So the Economic Development District creates this federal umbrella for the region. It provides access to funding from the EDA for infrastructure projects, and it provides a framework for regional coordination at the local level. This is not what we have in the Madison region. I'm sure you can see that pretty clearly. In our region, we have a regional planning commission, but it only serves one county. It serves Dane County. The Regional Planning Commission provides all those services that were on the previous chart or this previous slide: data collection, analysis, map making, coordination, urban service areas, land use planning. All of that is within the domain of CARPC, but it's only for one of the 8 counties in our region. WEDC has a direct relationship with MADREP, but not so much with our Regional Planning Commission. Frankly, the relationship between WEDC and MADREP is somewhat tenuous. There are a few issues there that are in the process of being worked out, but MADREP is responsible for the coordination of regional economic development strategy, branding, and marketing of the region, monitoring the supply of business sites. But it doesn't have the resources that are available to the region that a regional planning commission brings, a true regional planning commission. The other aspect of all this is the Madison region is not an economic development district. So we have not been designated by the EDA as a formal district for planning and coordination of around economic development issues. And so that's another drawback to our ability to be able to deliver these regional scale sites, because we don't have the regional institutional mechanisms in place to provide that coordination that helps us, helps local entities meet the regional demand for these kinds of sites. So some of the findings, with that context, some of the findings of from our report are that the other aspect of this are the Madison Region Economic Partnership is actually 8 counties, but 2 of those counties are already in the Southwest Economic Development District. The Southwest Economic Development District covers a number of counties in Southwest Wisconsin. The 2 that overlap with the Madison region are Greene County and Iowa County. Those 2 counties were excluded from this study because what we're doing is kind of setting our region up to be designated as an economic development district, and it would probably include just the 6 counties, excluding those 2 that are already in the Southwest Economic Development District. So our 6-county Madison region has 123 business parks. They encompass nearly 26,000 acres of land. Nearly half of that land is developed. So the 26,000 acres, about 13,000 is developed, about 13,000 is undeveloped. The average undeveloped parcel is 12 acres in size, while the average developed parcel is 9 acres. So in general, the sites that are not developed, the parcels that aren't developed are quite a bit larger than the parcels that end up getting developed, but not that much. Municipalities in the region have an inventory of about 76,000 acres of land available for economic activity. Now, the distinction between this is that the business parks that we've identified are generally single owner parks that are developed by that owner and they're managed by that owner. So they're discrete units. But in addition to the business parks that we've got in the region, we've got quite a bit of land that's zoned and entitled for economic activity, and that's commercially zoned, or, commercial properties, industrial properties. A lot of mixed use properties have both economic activity and residential activity. We didn't count the mixed use parcels in here. We're just looking at commercial and industrial designated parcels in municipalities across the region. And we have about 3 times the acres of land in that broader category than we do in land that's just in the single owner type areas. So we've got 76,000 total acres, again, about half of which is developed. The average parcel size here, though, is a little bit smaller. The average undeveloped parcel size is 7.8 acres, with the average developed parcel size at 3.8 acres. The next thing we did was an analysis of the request for information that Madison region has received over this past year. There were a total of 59 requests for information that were looking for greenfield sites. So we're only looking at requests that were looking for greenfield sites. The average site size being sought by these requests is 47 acres. The minimum site size was 20. The maximum was 100. All requests are looking for sites that can be developed immediately upon deciding, or shovel ready in the vernacular. Now, this is in stark contrast to the supply that's available to fill this demand. Local land use decisions generally consider local land use needs, not the needs of broader regional and national firms needing to locate facilities. A regional entity tracking regional demand and making local decision makers aware of the demand currently does not exist in the Madison region. And it's one of the reasons we're in this situation of having sites that are around 10 acres available, but these RFIs looking for sites that are between 20 and 100 acres. We're averaging 47. So there's a big disconnect there. Some of the findings related to our target sectors are that our target sectors, now the target sectors, and I'm going to jump back here to the very first slide because we've got those listed. Our target sectors are advanced manufacturing, healthcare, agriculture, food and beverage, transportation, distribution and logistics, information, communication and technology, and bioscience. These sectors are the heart of our regional economy. They're distributed all around the region. It's not focused in any one area. Some of these sectors are focused. For example, bioscience is clearly focused in the Madison region or in the Madison area, including Fitchburg is a huge area for bioscience. Advanced manufacturing is pretty evenly distributed around the region, as is ag, food, and beverage. Now back to where we were. So we found that most of our target sectors have strengthened their positions in our regional economy over the past decade. Many of our target industries are stronger today than 10 years ago relative to the national economy. So we're doing really well in terms of these target sectors are kind of consolidating and making Madison a more important area for these sectors. The bioscience sector in particular has seen remarkable gains in our region relative to the national economy, particularly there's a couple of industries within that sector that are standing out. The medicinal and botanical manufacturing, they've seen their location quotient grow from 0.93 to 2.33 just over 10 years. So that's more than a doubling of the strength of that industry in our region. Biological products, except diagnostic manufacturing, we were really strong to begin with at 9.1, but it's gotten even stronger. So the LQ for this industry in our region is more than 13 right now. Research and development in nanotechnology has seen, again, we were doing pretty well before this. We had an LQ of 1.4, but that's doubled in the last 10 years. And medical laboratories also have not quite doubled, but are growing very strongly. Growth of these industries has created a critical shortage of lab and other specialized space suitable to meet regional demand. Growing firms need available space immediately and often cannot wait for the market to plan and deliver space, so they consider moving to other markets where suitable space is available. And our Madison region has lost a couple of these growth opportunities from companies that started in our region but weren't able to find suitable spaces here and actually moved to other places outside of our region. Some of the target industries where our competitive position has slipped in the past 10 years include research and development in the physical, engineering, and life sciences, except nanotechnology, electrical, medical and electrotherapeutic apparatus manufacturing, fertilizer, animal food manufacturing, and you can see the rest of the list here. These are areas that maybe we were stronger years ago, but we're kind of moving where our region is not able to keep up in terms of relative to the national economy in terms of our strength in these industries. The Madison region is the only economic development region in Wisconsin that's not correct. The Southeast Milwaukee 7 is also not an economic development district. So it's one of two regions in Wisconsin that are not a federally designated economic development district. The 6 counties comprising the core of MADREP service area are the only counties in Wisconsin not served by a regional planning commission, with a role to monitor regional demand for economic activity and coordinate with local units of government relative to local land use decisions. So the 5 counties surrounding Dane that are part of the Madison region are the only counties in the state of Wisconsin that are not part of a regional planning commission. As part of this study, and we did based on the typology that I presented a couple slides ago, we rated the 123 business parks according to their ability to potentially serve these larger scale regional and national markets. And this is the list of the parks that we came up with. Frankly, Fitchburg would have been on this list if you had some lands that are designated. We only looked at lands that had, or at business parks and sites that had adjacent lands that were already designated for economic activity. And so all of these places do have additional lands that could be expanded, and the acreage for that is shown on here. So altogether, these 10 sites have the potential to provide an additional 24,000 acres for the Madison region. And they have some pretty clear advantages in terms of the targets, some of these target sectors that are here. So for each of these identified sites, there is a 7-page report available that details the characteristics of each site or area, ownership, values, development status, industry, business and employment, whether TIF is available, net new construction, demographics, a lot of data in these reports. Many municipalities experiencing demand for economic growth have reached the limits of the only tool available to them to finance the infrastructure needed to support economic development projects, and that's TIF. And Fitchburg is in this pool of communities that have been right at their limits. I know that that's changed recently for Fitchburg, but you're still kind of close to your limit. So 17 municipalities in total are in that category. And some of them are really fast growing communities with demand for their sites. And their hands are tied in terms of being able to help in developing these sites. So some of our recommendations are to establish an inventory of shovel-ready sites for regional and national scale projects to serve target sector industries. And we're recommending that the region identify at least 4 sites suitable for large regional or national scale economic development projects and move those sites to being shovel-ready as soon as possible. Maintain, develop, and update a regional site inventory. Further develop indicators of site preparedness levels for the attraction, expansion, and retention of both target sector businesses and other commercial and industrial businesses. And then continue to analyze absorption rates across the region for economic activity parcels. 2 is to increase the supply and reduce the risk to investors and institutional actors of preparing and holding sites for larger economic development projects. So one of the issues with this is with the lack of a true regional planning process that is coordinating regional demand with local land uses. Investors are not willing to take the added risk of investing in these larger sites. If the local jurisdictions aren't designating land uses, it's difficult for investors to move forward in developing and securing these larger sites. So we think establishing designating the Madison region as an economic development district hosted by MadRep and encompassing these 6 counties is something that can help reduce that risk of investment. Establishing partnerships with the county and municipal planning agencies to provide input on regional demand for economic land uses to local land use decisions and foster intergovernmental cooperation to allow multi-jurisdictional land use decisions and funding of required local infrastructure. So a lot of the opportunity for these larger sites exists at the edges of many municipalities, or of a number of municipalities, and sometimes they cross jurisdictions. So there's a lot of instances where multi-jurisdictional land use decisions could really help solve this problem for our region. And one of the examples of that is the southeast side of Madison at the intersection of the interstate and the Beltline. That's ground zero for the demand for industrial space in our region. And that particular area encompasses, I think there's 6 different jurisdictions right in there, that in order for a regional scale site to develop around that important intersection, we've got 6 different local jurisdictions that have to come together to make decisions that this is the right thing to do. So that's a pretty daunting prospect in the absence of some regional umbrella that can help bring this together. The third item here is to establish a land and building bank to buffer the financial barriers of preparing and holding sites and buildings, potentially underwritten by a land value capture mechanism. So what we're looking at here, is there a way to put large acres of land into some kind of a bank, a land bank, or also buildings as they become vacant and perhaps available for other uses? Could we have a supply of both land and buildings to help buffer the delay in supply and demand in the market, and help us get some of these larger sites onto the available for development? And so this idea of a land value capture, one of the things we found out is that the value of land increases significantly once it's developed. So typically that change in value is 3 to 6 times the pre-development value. And so that change in value potentially could be a mechanism to help fund this idea of a land bank. Our third recommendation here is to increase the capacity of public and institutional entities in the region to invest in sites, infrastructure, and site amenities. So we think the cap, the 12% cap on TIF that municipalities have, that should be expanded, and particularly for projects, or have a mechanism that allows that cap to be lifted if there's a large regionally significant project that can happen. So the range of projects that may be funded with TIF and combined with a land bank mechanism to buffer fluctuations in supply and demand can help reduce the risk of investing in these large regional scale sites. Certain site amenities are critical to the efficient functioning of an employment area, particularly housing that's affordable to the nearby workforce and childcare services. MadRep should partner with others addressing these issues to find appropriate mechanisms for funding and supplying these employment-related amenities. Number 4 is increasing regional organizational alignment. The Economic Development District designation will place MadRep in the role of monitoring regional economic development needs and working with local units of government, institutions, investors, businesses, and others to ensure that those needs are met. It's critical that MadRep understand the interests of economic development partners and align those interests to meet the economic development needs of the region. MADREP should begin a schedule of regular interactions with local units of government around the economic development needs of the region and the local unit's role in meeting those needs. And MADREP should engage with other regional economic development entities, WEDC and EDA, to maximize the Madison region's contribution to the state and national economies. And finally, the MADREP should further develop our regional marketing presence. One is to clearly define and communicate concise messages regarding the MADREP value proposition to our target sector businesses, to include proactive campaigns, compelling testimonials, data, comparisons, and enhanced regional web presence, uniting MADREP and its regional economic development partners. There should be proactive recruitment of new target sector investment, such as from existing regional businesses with outside the region ownership in partnership with local economic development professionals. So this involves identifying those businesses that are already in our region that are owned outside of our region and understand what value brings them to our region and is keeping them here, and then help them use that information to help us market our region to other firms like them. And then further develop site selector relationships with those focused on target sector industries and firms and the sites we have to support them. And then additional recommendations are to secure designation as an economic development district. I think we're just about there. The region applied for economic development district designation, and they've gotten a warm reception from EDA. So I think that is something that will happen this year. One of the issues with MADREP is that they don't have any formally designated authority. MADREP is a voluntary organization, a voluntary nonprofit organization organized under the general incorporation laws of Wisconsin. We're suggesting that there may be a way for MADREP itself to get more authority than that, in that state statutes allow counties. Chapter 59 is the chapter of state statutes that covers what counties can do under state law. But counties are allowed to establish an industrial development agency. And those industrial development agencies were fairly common before regional planning commissions were established. And these industrial development agencies were, before regional planning commissions, were the primary mechanism for counties to be involved in regional planning. And it gives, and it allows the counties to designate any entity to serve this function. And multiple counties can come together to do this jointly under these statutes. So we're recommending that MADREP investigate this idea of becoming a Chapter 59 industrial development agency that would give them more statutory authority to do the kinds of things that it should be doing to coordinate regional development across those counties. MADREP should also kind of increase its role and take on some of the roles that a regional planning commission takes on, including building its data collection, analysis, and mapping capabilities in order to monitor the regional economy, including the supply and demand of sites and buildings, and coordinate with and advise counties and local jurisdictions on the reservation and development of sites to serve the regional economy. And that the branding and marketing of the region should include a branded differentiation of economic sites and districts according to the geographic scale and industrial sectors of the market served, so that our branding. So one of the things that we're trying to do now is we're trying to push these local sites that we have available to regional and national site selectors, and that's not working out too well. So we should realign our marketing of the region to better fit what we have available to offer. And so if we only have local scale sites, we probably shouldn't be trying to market ourselves to these national and regional scales. So that's the point of this is let's do a better job of matching our branding and our marketing and what we're trying to attract here to better fit what we have available. As we get more available, we can step up our national and regional marketing to match what we have to offer. The gold shovel certification, the Madison Region Economic Partnership has its own business park certification process called gold shovel. It's a little bit less rigorous than the state level certification. We're recommending that certification process should actually have 3 tiers to match the readiness to serve local, regional, or national geographic scale. So that a business park primarily intended to serve a local market that might have that, site sizes in the 2 to 10 acre range, that might be considered, that might be certified as a local market business park, and it would need fewer requirements, or the standards could be less in terms of site sizes or the level of infrastructure serving the sites. But regional or national scales, they might require higher site standards. And so there would be a different certification process for the different scale being served by that business park. And then MadRep should move from a model of marketing individual sites and real estate to marketing larger mixed-use districts with a set of amenities suited to meet the needs of targeted industries and business types. So one of the things that's changing, that has been changing, is this going towards more mixed use and understanding the relationship between residential properties, commercial properties, and industrial properties in terms of the interaction, the supply of labor, how people get to work. Is there affordable housing nearby to a business park so that people who work in the business park can afford to live close to work? So the current model that we have, we're out there trying to push individual sites kind of in isolation. That's starting to change. Many communities are starting to take more of a holistic approach and a district type approach to the sites, so that they can offer a whole suite of amenities associated with a particular business site. And so this idea of rather than promoting an individual site, we should be looking at what's the area around that site and what amenities does that have to support the development of the site. And so that's more of a district kind of approach. And then also that MadRep should be involved in increasing the capacity for public-private partnerships to bring larger scale sites and facilities to a shovel-ready state by securing flexibility in Wisconsin's TIF law for a municipality to exceed the 12% limit for a regionally significant development, and work with partners to establish and manage a land bank to fund land reservation, pre-development, entitlement, and holding costs. The land bank could potentially be funded by a land value capture mechanism. And that concludes the summary of this report. There's a lot in there. I hope you were able to process it as I was talking, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Randy?
One question I have, Gary, is the 12% limit for the TIF funding. Is that, can you speak to it in a little bit finer detail regarding how that would change? Is it is that something where we would have to, I guess, lobby the legislature?
Yeah, that's right. And the League of Wisconsin Municipalities is pretty involved in that kind of thing. that would require some change in state law in order for that to happen.
Do you have a feel of where that might be at this point, or maybe there's no movement?
No, oh, I think there's some positive indications that this could happen. The league would be in favor of it. The Wisconsin Economic Development Association would be in favor of it. And we know there are a number of legislators that want to see more flexibility in this area. So I think that's something that potentially could happen.
Very good. Thank you.
I just wanted to kind of add something on the 12%. We were bumping up against that 12%, and it was because we had two really successful TID districts, TID 6, which was the Orchard Point district, and then TID 4, which is the big one around here with a lot of the pro-mega and science and tech, and that even helped us fund the Highway 14 Lacey Road interchange. We've already closed TID 6. We're in the process of closing TID 4. So we will be well under the 12% equalized value right now. But that has been a challenge for us over the last couple of years because we haven't been in a position to create new districts. But now we'll have some capacity. And as we'll talk later in the meeting, we're coming back already to create, amend one district and create two new ones. So it is our local economic development tool that we desperately need.
Go ahead, Dan.
On the bond rating system, if you increase the ability of the municipalities to borrow beyond 12% of the assessed value in their communities, how are the bond rating institutions going to treat that?
Yeah, I think there's two things getting mixed up here. One is the statutory debt limit that municipalities have, which is 5% of equalized value, and the TIF limit is 12%. So the TIF isn't necessarily a borrowing kind of thing. It's kind of a limit on how much future tax revenue a municipality is able to mortgage based on projected development.
And doesn't that have an impact on the rating bureaus when they're coming to look at interest rates that are going to be afforded the municipality that's trying to borrow the money?
Well, it depends on how the municipality approaches their TIF. A lot of municipalities, for development incentives in particular, are not borrowing the money, and they're requiring the developers to borrow the money. So that part of the TIF really doesn't have much of an impact on a bond rating, unless the development agreements are not structured properly. Then that could have an effect on the bond rating. But I guess my response is that the effect on the bond rating depends on the actions of the individual municipality, not on the 12% TIF limit. I don't think the 12% TIF limit in and of itself is enough to affect a municipality's bond rating.
Maybe I misunderstood you. I thought you said that it was important for the region to have shovel ready. Shovel ready to me means water, sewer, streets, access to the highway system. Everything they did down in southeast Wisconsin when we were going to have the big television, Foxconn. Mm-hmm. So aren't we going to have the municipality put up money before there's potential users of that property so that we can attract them? And isn't that going to be a burden on the local taxpayers? It's kind of like if you build it, they will come. That's what it sounds like to me.
This is the reason we're suggesting a land bank, is that so that we know, so reserving and getting these larger sites ready for development will cost money. It's going to require investment from someone. A lot of times, it's particularly in the Madison region, that investment comes from private the private sector. Private sectors are, there are a number of privately owned business parks in the Madison region that individual investors went in, they bought the land, they put the infrastructure in, and they sell lots. That's kind of the typical model. What's more common in rural areas is for the municipality to be involved in that. There are some municipalities in the Madison area that are actively engaged in acquiring land, but not many. So again, it comes down to the individual municipality's approach to these things. And what we're suggesting is if there was a land bank that was available to help both the private and public sectors who are investing in these kinds of sites to help with the financing of that, rather than putting it all on TIF or all on the municipality, spread it around and have it funded by the increase in the value of land that comes from putting that investment in the ground.
What efforts have been undertaken to have Dane County and the surrounding counties join together for this regional planning effect as a collective body?
Well, back when the regional planning law was passed, and I'm not remembering the exact year, it's right around 1969, 1970, there was an initial attempt to create a large regional planning commission that would have covered both southwest Wisconsin and south central Wisconsin. That idea ended up breaking apart. The southwest region was able to form their own regional planning commission. The counties around Dane, however, said that they would not join a regional planning commission if Dane County was part of it. And so that's kind of the situation that we've been in ever since, in that these surrounding counties don't want to engage with Dane County, and for understandable reasons. They feel like their voice would not be heard because Dane County is such a large entity. So that's where we are. We're hoping that perhaps MadRep, being a little more neutral in terms of the perception of control that might be there, and if they use the Chapter 59 county statutes for industrial development agencies, that may be a path to overcome some of these problems with getting the surrounding counties to join in a regional planning type agency. Maybe a regional economic development entity is maybe a halfway point to that they could accept that idea.
Who is in charge of MadRep?
Well, there's a board, and the board hires a staff. So the board is comprised of a lot of the economic institutions in the region. UW, the UW, and a lot of the large construction firms, and Baker Tilly, and MG&E, utilities are all part of the MadRep board. And then they hire staff, professional staff to administer. So Jason Fields, a former state legislator, is the president of MadRep.
Are there any government entities or participation in this MadRep?
Yes, there are several counties represented on the board. The city of Madison is on the board. Can't think of any other municipality-related entities that are on the board.
And MadRep is publicly and privately funded and financed.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? Joyce, go ahead.
Gary, I have a question for you. So when you talk about the that Chapter 59, the Industrial Development Board or Committee, and you talk about decisions in local land use, does that mean that they would be directing some of our
No,
land
not at
use
all. Not at all.
policies? I mean, because
Yeah.
you talk, when you say authority, over local land? I just want to understand that a little bit more.
Yeah, so the Industrial Development Agency statutes say that a county industrial development agency is required to coordinate with local jurisdictions on these issues. So it's not that they're, when I say authority, I mean, right now, MadRep has no authority to coordinate with local jurisdictions. There's nothing in the state statutes that says MadRep must coordinate with local jurisdictions. Under Chapter 59, if MadRep was an industrial development agency, there would be something in the statutes that says MadRep must coordinate with these local jurisdictions and try to make things, better coordinated than they currently are. That's not to say they're going to have the authority to direct municipalities to do anything. There's nothing in the statutes that would provide that kind of authority.
Mark?
Gary, just a couple observations. One is, thank you for the presentation. Two is, it sounds like what you've shared and started, we're competing against each other with the people around us in Dane County and then the other counties around us. So as you look at Fitchburg, what should we be focusing on? Second of all, I'm seeing both home runs and singles, and I guess a home run I'm describing as an Amazon facility. A single versus a smaller business that we could put in here tomorrow where we have developed land. So what should Fitchburg, until this all comes together as you're proposing or trying to bring together, what should we be focusing on in terms of mixed use and public-private partnerships, et cetera? We weren't on your original list either that you had. So what is your observation of what, as a committee, we should be thinking about, and as a city, we should be thinking about, without wanting my taxes to go up?
Right, exactly. Well, Fitchburg is really well situated in the region, and you've got some great infrastructure. You've got a great location that is, and you've got access to a great workforce. And so all of that puts you in a very good position. What you don't have is a lot of land that's designated for economic activity. And so I think as you look at your undertaking your comprehensive plan and look at particularly looking at the lands that are in the southern part of the city and close to either Highway 14 or 18151 on the Verona side, on the Oregon side or the Verona side, both of those areas, I think, could have a lot of potential for for what we're talking about here, to serve more of a regional or national market for economic activity. And we think it's important to be holistic, to think holistic about these land uses so that, even though you may be designating perhaps 100 acres for a larger type economic use, adjacent to that, there should be residential and commercial uses as well, so that there's some efficient functioning so that people don't have to drive a long way to get to their work. Maybe they can even walk or ride their bike to work. They're that close in units or housing that they can afford based on the wages they earn in that business park. So that's the kind of thing, that's the kind of coordination we're thinking of. And if you can be thinking about that as you're going through your comprehensive plan or these neighborhood plans that you're embarking on, I think that would be a great move to make.
Thank you.
Gary, I have a couple questions for you. So when you guys did your analysis, was there any outreach to any of the site selectors that recently, of the 59, that did outreach as to any feedback on what they were actually getting from us, as to why they didn't look? I know we've worked on a few of these. I mean, Mike and I always go through and look at the requests, and some of them just aren't right for our community. So any feedback from site selectors that you can share with us? Because that's the frustrating part for us, is we put
No.
countless hours of work into these requests where we have to drop everything that we're doing because they're time sensitive. And then we hear nothing. And it's extremely frustrating where you have no feedback as to what, do you share any insight into that?
Yeah, I wish I could, Joyce, but we run into the same exact thing that you experienced, and that there's just no they're not willing to provide feedback on anything that gets submitted, and it's really frustrating. We try to look at, okay, well, first of all, we don't know what these projects are because it's all coded, right? But sometimes we can figure out, and then looking at, well, where did these requests end up landing? And you can see that the ones that we know about, that the options are better at those other locations. So the couple that we were able to look at, we could see that why they made the choice, but for the vast majority of these RFIs, we have no idea and no feedback. And that's that's part of the frustration of the system that we're in right now. It's not working for us. And we're not getting the opportunities that we think we should be getting through this process. So we've got to change something. And we think we can change some things on our end. And by changing our positioning and the way we're marketing the region, that may have an effect on that. But yeah, it's a frustrating process to be part of.
So do you have any advice for the local economic development professional that, is there a way that we can, I think there needs to be a conversation maybe at a higher level, kind of just understanding what our role is and understanding what each level of assistance is to make the system work better. I feel like sometimes, I know that there is some tools maybe that WEDC has that they could share with the local people, because I've called them and said, hey, I'm looking for this certain thing, and they've walked me through it. And I feel like maybe there needs to be better coordination between WEDC and the locals even, to talk about, hey, what do you guys need from us, and how can we help you? Because I feel like maybe if we better understood how they can help, then we can do a better job too.
Mm-hmm. And I know that MadRep is committed to doing a better job for their part. And part of what I've been talking to MadRep about is doing a better job of filtering the requests. Right now, they're kind of they just when they get a request, they just send it out, and whoever wants to respond responds. But MadRep could do a better job in terms of filtering those requests and matching available sites. Now that they have a good inventory and a lot of characteristics about each of these sites, they have the information they need to perhaps do a better job of matching the real opportunities in the region with these RFIs, and avoid a whole bunch of local economic development professionals trying to put these things together with no impact, which is really, really frustrating. It's just a waste of time. It's a waste of everybody's time for these fire drills, when these fire drills happen.
This is probably nothing you can answer, but Locate in Wisconsin was supposed to be kind of that one-stop shop for site selectors to kind of do their initial work. Do you know how successful that tool has been? I mean, are people going out there to look before they even send out those RFIs, or I'm probably
Yeah,
asking questions.
yeah,
that-
people are looking at that, but the problem is, all the data in that system has to be entered by individuals at the local level. And it just isn't happening. So the Lois got outdated probably within 2 years after it got set up, just because the data input wasn't happening on a regular basis. There wasn't anybody, it was everybody was responsible for putting their own information in, and some are really good at it, but a lot of municipalities and a lot of business park owners are not keeping the data up, and so it's not very helpful anymore.
Thanks, I'll leave you alone now.
All right. Were there any other questions about the report?
I would just summarize. Thanks, Gary, first of all, for getting up early and sharing this information. It's an important conversation, not only at the regional level, but at the local level as far as informing us and the policymakers here. So we'll keep you updated as the conversations and the initiatives continue going forward. So thanks, Gary.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Okay, item number 7 is hotel room tax report considerations. Fitchburg's 40th birthday events hotel room tax request.
Do we want to just jump to Angela first?
Yeah, Angela's here. Why don't we?
If that's
just go
okay
to-
for the
Sure.
agenda? Yeah.
If no one has any objection to that, we can move on to Angela
Good
Kinderman.
morning, everyone.
Go ahead, Angela.
Hey, good morning. So I'll be quick. What you have in front of you is our 2022 work plan report. We had a great year in 2022 in terms of expanding our reach and communications to people. Everything we do in our tourism department is designed to create a positive economic impact in Fitchburg by marketing our assets and amenities. So I'll just run through this kind of, I won't go through each item, but I'll quickly go through what we have here, the impact, and then if there's any questions, just let me know. First off is our what would I say, our digital work through social media and newsletters. So there's some examples there of what we do. In 2022, our social media reach increased by 500%, and that is really pretty phenomenal. That's a year-to-year increase from 2021. And we attribute that to quite a few different things, but a really collaborative approach between all of the things that we market, partnering with our other regional partners and some of their, leveraging their audiences, and driving people to Fitchburg, and then also our content. We have people coming to our content, such as our social media platforms, our newsletter, our visit newsletter, which I will put a plug in again if you don't follow our visit newsletter. It's a once monthly newsletter. It's a really good update each month. The content that is in those items is what we're finding is people come to it and they stay. So we increase our followers when they're looking for Fitchburg information. In 2022, we again had our community campaign, Bike the Burg. And this is a really fun summer-long campaign that helps extend our biking brand in Fitchburg. We encourage people to sign up at biketheburg.org. It's free to participate. We encourage people to log 150 or more miles through the summer. We have 2 Fitchburg businesses that are supportive of that campaign, Shine Technologies and Fitchburg Family Pharmacy. And last year, Shine Technologies organized a community ride. I think we actually are going to have 2 community rides this year with Shine, starting at the Shine headquarters, and then also one with Fitchburg Family Pharmacy. So again, that campaign is pretty encouraged to, we encourage people to bike through the summer. It helps extend our Fitchburg brand, and we've had an increase. There was an increase in 50 more participants last year from the year before. It is free to participate unless you would like one of the super cool t-shirts, Bike the Berg, then it is $10. So again, that's biketheberg.org. Quite successful last year, and we hope that grows again this year. As I mentioned, we work with our regional tourism partners to leverage their audiences. We call them co-op opportunities, Travel Wisconsin, and then of course Destination Madison. So we participated in some different social media co-op posts with Travel Wisconsin. They have quite a large audience, featuring things that we want people from around the state or around the region, the travel region, to come to in Fitchburg. Festival of Speed, the Agora Art Fair, and then also the Hop House Run. Destination Madison did a Madison on Tap craft brew campaign last year, and we participated in that. It encouraged people to follow a trail of craft brewers throughout the Madison region. And we, of course, have some great craft brewers here in Fitchburg. So Delta Beer Lab, Hop House, and Great Dane all participated in that. And then they also have a staycation campaign, usually in the winter, where we encourage people to stay at our hotels for kind of a weekend fun getaway. And that is a great promotion that I think we've had. Staybridge Suites had the most stays during that promotion 2 years in a row now. Some other things that our team does is we update regional websites throughout the year with Fitchburg events. So that's a time-consuming but really important aspect of our work, which is to make sure that everything that's going on in Fitchburg is available for people at the various communication platforms that they read on a regular basis. So, newspapers, websites, that type of thing. We do a few print ads. We do participate in the Wisconsin Bike Fed Bike Ride Guide, which goes out every year, and a little bit in the Fitchburg Star. And that's kind of our marketing work. And again, like I said, we had quite a bit of an increase in our social media impact last year. Our tourism newsletter increased in followers by 9%. And we also have an industry average that's of reading that newsletter 5% above the industry average. So I think what we're doing is working. We kind of follow closely the analytics on all of this stuff to make sure that we are following what people want to engage with. Let's see here. So another aspect of our work is making sure that we are kind of, I kind of call us the concierge for Fitchburg sometimes, when groups want to bring a large group to our Fitchburg hotels, whether it is an association that wants to hold a conference, whether it is youth sporting groups, or any kind of conferences. And so last year we worked with our own fire chief, Joe Pulvermacher, to bring the Wisconsin Fire Chief Association group to Fitchburg. They stayed at our Wyndham Garden hotel and dined at many of our Fitchburg restaurants. And so we worked with them to help plan that event. We also worked with some youth soccer groups. And we also have been working with the Wisconsin Ag Tourism Department for a conference to host here in 2023. So we've secured that conference, and they will be staying a large group at the Staybridge Suites, and the conference will kick off at Four Winds Farm. So we really try to promote our assets to groups that will bring large groups here, book large room blocks at our hotels, but then also, conduct their business here, whether it's meetings, catering. The Ag Tourism Conference will be touring some of our ag assets. So those type of things, I encourage, if you ever are working with somebody, to reach out to me directly. And like I said, we kind of play a little bit of a concierge service to help people plan itineraries and connect them with the right people so that their event is a success. And of course, the really super fun things that we like to do, we are the producers of Concerts at McKee, which is kind of a signature community festival that takes place every year. June, July, and August, we have free concerts that everyone is welcome to attend. I am really excited about the lineup this year. So if you are not following Concerts at McKee on Facebook, that's where we announce the bands. Please do. I think we've got a great lineup, and that event seems to grow every year. It's one of a really nice event that feels very welcoming and inclusive, and everyone is welcome. So we hope to see you there. Agora Art Fair, I think this is the 11th annual art fair. I could be wrong on that. Might be 12. Is again at the end of August, and Fitchburg Festival of Speed is in mid-July, and we will be having that. Also includes our Fitchburg Community Fireworks at the Fitchburg Festival of Speed, and it was just announced that one of the headliner bands is Super Tuesday, which people like to come out and see. Again, that is the Wisconsin State Criterium Championship race, so all day long activities. Biking activities, whether it's the 25-mile community ride. I think they might have a smaller ride this year too, and then the Criterion racing all day long. If you haven't been out to that event, I encourage you to come out really anytime during the day and watch the races, or come for the bands and the fireworks. We do provide some corporate sponsorships with our room tax dollars. Again, and working with our business partners to encourage them to bring customers to our hotels and our Fitchburg amenities. And last year it was the Stem Cell Symposium produced by Promega and the International Forum on Consciousness. Both events are back in person at Promega. We have a lot of community engagement. Obviously, that's our role, especially in the tourism area. We produce the Fitchburg Community Guide, the Welcome to Fitchburg Guide, 18,000 copies. I think we have almost distributed all of them already. We might have to print more, but that is a really popular piece, kind of a premier marketing piece, all things Fitchburg. Same with our Fitchburg bike maps, very popular. And I'm currently working along with Scott from our Parks Department with Madison Public Art. And we hope, I don't want to say too much now, but we hope to unveil a public art piece in early 2024 here in Fitchburg. So, and then of course, the most exciting thing that just has everybody buzzing last year and the year before, working with B-Cycle in Fitchburg. So thank you to CETA for the seed money to get that program launched. I knew it would be popular. I didn't know how popular. The station at Agora, Fitchburg Chamber Station at Agora, was installed on Monday. My staff said people have been in the office all week long asking about B-Cycle and getting more information about B-Cycle. There's a lot of community chatter online about it. So expanding B-Cycle into Fitchburg was a really popular thing, and we're excited to even continue with more stations. And so again, thank you to CETA for that participation. So we'll keep you posted on that. I will say we will be having a ribbon cutting to celebrate the launch in Fitchburg. I believe that date is May 10th, and we'll make sure that invitation gets out to everybody. It will be at the Fitchburg Chamber at Agora Station, and so kind of a launch of the Fitchburg B-Cycle network. And then also in the month of April, we will be running, B-Cycle will be running a promotion to celebrate the expansion into Fitchburg with a free month-long pass. So anyone can ride B-Cycle for free in the month of April with the code BikeTheBurg. So we encourage you to share that and download the B-Cycle app and punch in BikeTheBurg code and hop on a bike. Let's see. I think that's a quick summary. I'm happy to answer any questions. I just will again remind you to sign up for the Visit Fitchburg newsletter, and again, follow us on our social media outlets to keep it current with what's going on in our community. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Angela? Mike, did you have anything to add?
No, I just wanted to say thank you to Angela and her team at the Fitchburg Chamber Visitor Business Bureau. They're a great partner, and I think you can see from Angela's report here the great work that they do to make Fitchburg that special place and a unique community here. So we appreciate their partnership and collaboration with us. And then I would just also thank CETA. I think the B-Cycle launch here and the buzz and the excitement that it's already generating and building here is another example of how sometimes we can be a catalyst to help drive an initiative in the community that really is positive. So thanks to you guys for that support.
Mike, can I just mention the one comment that we've received already about B-Cycle? The interesting thing about B-Cycle, and you may just think it's a leisure activity, but Madison B-Cycle actually received a communication a couple weeks ago asking where the B-Cycle stations would be located in Fitchburg, because the individual was moving to Fitchburg and they wanted to be close to a B-Cycle station. So I think this B-Cycle program will have not just an impact on our leisure activity or our transportation, increase in our transportation options, but it really goes to kind of that quality of life sense of place for when people want to locate either their housing options or their workplace options. So again, you're going to hear the word B-Cycle a lot in the coming days, and you're going to see a lot of them, we hope, around the city. But again, thank you for your support on that.
All right, if there are no further comments or questions, thank you, Angela. And again, I would echo Mike, just saying that what a great partner I think you've been, the chamber has been.
Excellent. Thanks. We'll see you guys on May 10th, I hope.
I've already got it penciled in. Okay, we'll pop back up to item 7, which is the hotel room tax report considerations and Fitchburg's 40th birthday event. Mike, if you
And
want to
first
provide
off, I
info.
just flashed up the hotel room tax report on the screen. We had sent this out with the February agenda. And as you can see, we ended 2022 at $487,112 there, and that's 92% of our high year pre-COVID in 2019. So we're recovering well with the room tax and that book of business, and we're projecting that in 2023, this year, that we will be back to those 2019 numbers, and that's also what Destination Madison and the region are projecting and forecasting as well. So with that, for 2023, this is our 40th anniversary as a city incorporated in 1983. On the official date is April 26th. So as part of that celebration, we're coordinating with our partners at the Fitchburg Chamber Visitor Business Bureau on different events that'll kind of kick off with an April 25th council meeting where there will be a proclamation. But then we're also working with the chamber on other events that'll happen kind of throughout the summer and fall. So with that, I wanted to ask this group if you could give me some flexibility to kind of give us an authorization of a not to exceed amount of probably about $4,000 as we work with the chamber on some event planning that we're doing for those different events. One of the things we're looking at doing is having maybe some commemorative banners that would be at some strategic intersections of Fish Hatch and Greenway Cross, Fish Hatch, McKee, Verona Road, and McKee in different areas around the city. There might be a commemorative kind of promotional item that we would have that would be distributed at some of the events. And what we're trying to do with the Chamber Visitor Bureau is leverage some events that are already being planned. like the summer concert series. One of those is going to kind of, I think, have some dedicated 80s music there, so you can all come out and kind of have some retro music experience. There's some events with Ag and Rural Affairs and hopefully with the Bike Committee that we're going to kind of leverage and also engage with the farm community. But if we could maybe get a motion, if you'd be so inclined, that there could be an authorization of up to $4,000, and then we'll keep you updated in future meetings as we make decisions on those funding allocations and what the dollars are going to be used for. But that would be helpful and appreciated as we continue our planning.
So move an allocation of $4,000 to support the 40th anniversary.
I second.
How much do you have that's not allocated to spend?
As far as,
You know, we have the budget, and we
Yep.
said we're gonna spend X number of dollars,
yeah,
and then we should have Y number of dollars left over,
we've got
based on your projections.
we've got two different categories. There's category 345 and 391 there, and I think
Translate to English.
yeah. So we've got, I think, 7,001, and I think there's 9,000 in the other budget line item there. So it wouldn't. We would need to do a budget amendment or anything. We've got kind of capacity within those two line items to kind of break it out. There.
Very good, thank you.
All right. Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, voting on the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That item is approved.
And I think we're planning to have invite all the committees to the council meeting on April 25th for the proclamation reading, and there may be some refreshments at that event as well. So mark that on your calendar for Tuesday, April 25th.
Very good. Item number 9 is Economic Development Director and Committee Member Reports. I'll kick it back to you, Mike.
First off, Mark, did you have anything else you wanted to add on B-Cycle?
Yes, I think I'd like to add a couple things. First of all, I need to thank Mike as well and Angela, because 3 years ago, I brought this up to the two of them about bringing B-Cycle to Fitchburg. And with your support and help and a lot of hard work by city staff and chamber staff and B-Cycle, we have been able to make this a realism. And they started going out this week and last week. I want to tell you where they are, because that's the question everybody's asking. First and foremost, on the east side of town, and it's being deployed in two phases. The east side of town is one at Terravesa. There's going to be one already down at the Gore in the Chamber. They're putting the pad in at McKee Park. There's going to be one over at the Oak Bank site right next to Barrique's. The person that owns that shopping center is giving 2 parking spaces to put stalls there. We're going to have one right by the bike bridge across Fish Hatchery on the west side. And then we're going to have one at Limerick. Limerick is a senior housing area to the east of Lacey Road, or over in that area, and they're even going to give their residents free access to them. It's free during the month of April. The one thing about this in phase 1 that everybody needs to know about, it's 18 years and up. You have to get an app on your phone when you start to pay for it, and there's an FAQ along with this so people can understand how it's used. I won't cover what Angela already covered. We got a TAP grant of about $300,000 to do phase 2 of this project, and phase 2 is going to cover 6 to 8 more sites and another 55 to 60 bikes. We're looking at definitely at covering our underserved areas, the hub. We're talking to the Boys and Girls Club over on Allied, the McKenzie Center. We need to figure out a strategy across Verona Road. There's no easy way to get across unless you go down south and up, or you go across Williamsburg Way. Is that it, guys? You that live, okay, yeah, across Williamsburg Way. So we're working on that. We also need to look at Southdale and around Hop House and Race Day. We're having discussions to put this second group as it goes forward. But I think this is really a good thing for the city, because it goes back to the Mad Rep comments from Gary earlier this morning about having infrastructure and commuting, et cetera, to be able to move around. So it brings the network from B-Cycle into Fitchburg It's going to connect, they're talking about Oregon, they're talking about Verona, so this will be a really good thing for the city when it's done. So again, I want to thank, it was a lot of work, and I want to thank all of you for supporting us. As Angela said, I think it will be a very big success. So are any questions about it?
Didn't have a question as much as a comment. I know Mark, you and I have been talking offline as well about kind of additional events to promote B-Cycle, sort of as we have some of these community bike events, to make sure that B-Cycle has a presence there to continue to promote the network and let
Correct.
people see what it's all about.
And that brings to mind one other thing that Andy's helping us on as a former bike racer. Andy is working with Thad Schumacher. We're going to have 4 rides sponsored through the Senior Center this summer. When I say sponsored, just hosted. But we're going to take, the seniors have been asking for some help with this, and so we're going to offer some rides this summer. Joyce mentioned the bike committee is going to help her plan a ride that we've already talked about some ideas later this summer. So there's a lot going on. The only bad part about this is we're dealing with a window of Halloween to, I would have said a week ago, but you know, it's still snowing. So this bike season hasn't quite started yet, but yeah, so thank you to you for volunteering as well, Andy. I know you're busy with other committees and things, but we want to get our seniors out on the bikes too, so thanks.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks for you being a champion in your leadership, and Andy and the bike committee and the Bike Fitchburg as well. It was a real collaborative effort to get the whole B-Cycle program launched. So, Randy or Jim, do you want to just give us an update from the committee of the whole last night with the tree preservation conversation?
Sure. Last evening, the committee of the whole, the tree committee brought forward a tree preservation ordinance. There was discussion, but this came about from my understanding, the 2009 to 2019 a comprehensive plan on tree protection, and there's a policy number to support it. But really, what it is bringing forward, if this ordinance passes, is that when a developer develops a particular area, the plat will be, that encompasses a plat, that particular area will be surveyed, and all trees on that particular property will be surveyed. It goes before Plan Commission. The Fitchburg Forester will make her comments, in this case her, and of course it will be part of the discussion. I don't know if you want to give any more specific details on
just that it's more of a collaborative effort,
Yeah.
you know, and we did talk to one developer who was here last night and had some concerns about the breadth of the trees that is going to be measured, but due to the fact that it's so far in advance, you know, during the platting process, didn't have too many concerns about it, but there's still some things to be worked out, you know.
Again, I think we need to find that balance somewhere in between, maintaining environment, being good stewards of the environment, and working with our developers as well.
And last night was a work session at the committee of the whole meeting, and it's my understanding that if the ordinance is brought forward and introduced, then it'll get referred out to committees, and I think it'll be routed through CETA as well. And then I know we coordinated with City Administrator Chad Brecklin to send out the current kind of draft to different development groups and also the Madison Area Builders Association.
Correct.
To kind of get some feedback and input and questions on the front end.
And I believe that some of that has already taken place as well. So there's been a collaboration. It's just this is still a work in progress.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks for the update. Appreciate it.
I just have one question. So when you talk about the tree survey, will we do the survey, or are we going to require the developer to do it and submit it?
Well, my understanding is the developer, at this point. The developer would incur that portion of the project.
Well, I'm just going to make a
Sure.
comment from Joyce Fry, not, I'm just, once again, I think we need to be a little respectful of the fact that this is another additional cost, and we're trying to already look at affordable housing, and when we add more regulations and more cost, it seems like we're kind of defeating some of its conflicting objectives, is all I'm going to comment. So I hope that that's something that's being considered.
It has been considered, and you're not the only one who's raised that concern.
And just to add on, Randy and I will probably be meeting with a couple of developers just to hear firsthand, their views on this and what barriers they think that they may come upon, as far as this process is concerned.
Thanks for the update. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Next on the updates, I had handed out the TID creation and amendment schedule. As I mentioned during the Mad Rep report, we now will be well under the 12% equalized value cap. And so we've got a couple of tax increment districts that we're going to be creating, and then another one that we're going to be amending. So you can see from the schedule here, work is already starting in March to start to gather the inputs that we need to give to Ellers, our financial advisors, to eventually put together the draft project plans for each of the districts. And then our plan is to have our partners at the Joint Review Board hopefully have their consideration and support at an August 23rd meeting. And we'd be looking at 3 districts. One would be an amendment to the North Fish Hatchery Road, current existing TID number 10. We would have a new tax increment district in the Southdale neighborhood, the former town of Madison, that's now part of Fitchburg. And then we would be looking to create a new district on the west side of Verona Road along the Anton Drive corridor to implement the vision behind the Anton redevelopment plan that we had done back in the mid to late 2000 teens. There. So what I want to do is just show you on the map here on the screen. So this is the Southdale neighborhood, and if you can kind of see my little arrow cursor here, the area that we're going to be looking to add is all of the vacant parcels here. Again, we're west of Rimrock Road, south of Highway 14, so we're going to bring those in. And then there's a little section here right on the east side of Rimrock Road along Maloney Drive. That we've got somebody that's looking to do a townhome ownership product on 2 of the lots that are down here. So that's going to be brought in. And then we're going to meander over here, kind of past the Doxa Church. And there's some vacant lots right here along Ski Lane. And then we're going to go up the kind of the storage row here, bring this in for hopefully someday potential redevelopment of this site, especially at the corner. And then we're going to meander over and come back around to the top here. And these are the buildings that one has, used to be Nedrebo's back in the day, but there's a pawn shop in the front now. And then this building here. So these will hopefully be either reinvestment, revitalization, or redevelopment opportunities going forward in the future. So that's kind of what we're envisioning and what would ultimately be TID number 16, a new one in the town of Madison. We've already been in conversations with the Alexander Company, who owns most of this vacant land here in the middle, about development opportunities. So we'll be gathering, Joyce is already gathering the parcel information that needs to go in. We'll also be talking about project costs that we include in the TID project plan. What are some of maybe those public infrastructure items? Then there's usually a larger development incentive category that would drive specific development projects. And one of the things, Mark, that we have on our list is some kind of connection from the Cap City Trail at McCoy Road and that area, and how do you get kind of the bike infrastructure to get north into the Southdale neighborhood. So Joyce and I just talked about that the other day, and we're meeting with our public works consultant right now, Paul Woodard, at 9:15 today to talk about some of the project cost items for each of these categories. Then on the other side of the ledger, we're working with the developers to talk about what are those development assumptions that we would put into the TID project plan as well. And then Ellers will reconcile all those and start to show us how we envision the district kind of cash flowing out through the number of years here. And all 3 of the districts that I'm talking about would be categorized as rehabilitation districts. And so that gives us a 27-year life of the districts. We usually don't max out the life of our districts, but it gives us the benefit of time. But as part of that exercise, we have to kind of go through those parcels, and we have to kind of rank them or categorize them as far as why they are in need of rehabilitation. And that could be everything from it's vacant land that's underutilized, maybe kind of dilapidated kind of buildings and things like that. So we'll be going through that scoring system. So again, this is the TID number 16. So now I'm just going to zoom out here for give me just a second. I'm going to switch over to any questions so far? Now we're moving to TID number 10.
Right. Can I make an observation before you move off of there? The reason we want to try and connect this is that between our current bike network and Southdale's, one, it's part of Fitchburg. Second of all, B-Cycle wants to build a connect it into Madison. And Southdale is kind of an area that sits on its own. And we have already talked to one of the businesses over in that business park that Mike mentioned that Alexander owns. The second point is it's not the safest route to ride along, is it MM? Mm-hmm. Even though it's been slowed down 5 miles an hour, the road's pretty bad shape on the bike lane. The bike lane isn't that big. And I would advocate for a multi-use path that will let families and people that aren't avid bike riders be able to jump onto that thing and get over to Southdale. So as you plan that, see if a multi-use path of some type could be put in. Those are about 8 to 10 feet wide.
And one thing with tax increment districts, there's the geographic territory that's physically within the boundary of the designated TID area, but then you can go out a half mile for kind of infrastructure costs. So we don't have to put all of the land in the specific geographic district. We can do a half mile boundary, as well. So,
thank you.
Yep. Then switching over to Fish Hatchery Road. So right here we got the Beltline, Fish Hatchery Road, and this whole section here with the Zimbrick dealerships, and then over to Bryant Road, north of Greenway Cross, was former Town of Madison area that now is officially part of the city of Fitchburg as of October 31st. And so this is an area that we are going to amend tax increment district number 10, and we're going to bring this area in. One key infrastructure item here is Bryant Road if you've driven on it recently, is in desperate need of a reconstruction of that road. So that'll be one of the key infrastructure items. And then I'm going to be reaching out to Tom Zimbrick just to kind of check in with him on all of his properties and maybe plans up there. And then one other area, I'm going to zoom out here just a second, is in the current TID district right now, some of these parcels here, like McDonald's along Fish Hatchery Road here, the oil change place, and then the sleep center and dialysis clinic back here are currently not in the district. And we're going to be, they're just as refreshing. And then this lot down here, which is on the Avalon property, right here where I'm circling, that's where in venture capital, Mike and Ned, who are doing the mixed-use buildings along Fish Hatchery Road, are going to be they're breaking ground probably early next month for a building called the Avalon Project that'll have another 173 market rate apartments there. So we're going to bring in everything west of Index Road, and one of the reasons for doing that is if you ever try to get in and out of these businesses up here, McDonald's, the coffee shop, and some of the other ones, there's a lot of congestion and a lot of backup there. So one thing that our public works folks are looking at is, are there opportunities to do kind of almost like a little backage road on the east end of these parcels? And then is there a way through McDonald's right now? There's an ATT utility building right here, and there's a gate. Is there a way to kind of punch this through the sleep clinic and dialysis to get another east-west kind of connection over to Index Road? So we would have hopefully a north-south backage and then an east-west that would just provide more opportunities for people to get in and around those areas for it. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. And then on this Avalon property, and I'll be giving an update on housing initiatives in a little bit, is that's going to be a market rate building. But I think, as we've mentioned, the CETA before, and we have a scope of work that we're going to be working with our financial advisors, Ehlers and Associates, on. We've had the discussion about, is there a strategy that we can incorporate market rate or affordable units within market rate buildings, approximately 10%, and how would we structure that through a TID district? So Mike and Ned, right now this is market rate, but once we get the TID district approved, if we have a program to incorporate affordable units within market rate, as long as we kind of coordinate with them and work out and negotiate an agreement, they're open to being a pilot project for that concept. We would just need to kind of be on the timetable, kind of by October. We would have to have everything worked out, with them. So as we make progress on putting the program parameters together for that concept and idea, we'll hopefully be working hand in hand with Mike and Ned to see if that still is of interest to them. But right now, they definitely are interested if we can kind of make the numbers work on our end and also on their end. And we'll be using the Avalon as kind of a pilot scope as we work with Ehlers to kind of put the program parameters together. So we'll keep you posted on that as we make progress. Now I'm going to switch and zoom over to the west side of the city. And as you know, when we had the Verona Road reconstruction, an unprecedented, 7-year reconstruction of the road over there, one of the things that we proactively did, working with our colleagues in the planning department, was say, hey, let's work on a neighborhood plan to kind of guide the vision and redevelopment of this corridor kind of post-road reconstruction. So now that that's done, and with our TIF capacity here, we're looking at everything kind of along this Anton Drive corridor between Anton Drive and Verona Road, starting up here at Williamsburg Way, where you had the old kind of PDQ Quick Trip that has since closed. You've got the Liquor Town kind of little strip center here, and then we'll bring in all these parcels in between Anton and Verona Road, because as you know, as you drive over there, those buildings are kind of backwards now as far as their entrances face Verona Road, but there's no access from Verona Road. So we want to have some things in our toolkit that if any of those property owners are looking to kind of revitalize, reinvest, renovate, there's maybe some opportunities. And then we think we've got some prime redevelopment sites here with some of these lower level of uses like the horizontal kind of self-storage. We've got 2 different pods of those. And then as we get further south here, we'll be bringing in this land between Capec and King James Way. That's over there adjacent to what used to be our former fire station. That's now Dane County Emergency Management. And then we've got the Glenert property here. And then we've got some property that Scott Faust and Dave Lombardo own. And then we got a really prime spot right here that Dale Benjamin still owns and had originally programmed the site when we worked with him on this Class A office building. He's got it programmed for another Class A office building at this site. So again, we're hoping to kind of drive redevelopment, revitalization, and reinvestment along this whole corridor. Any questions on that? We're not including the new fountains at this point in time. We're trying to get some good information on that's an affordable housing development there and under the Section 42 tax credit program. And Joyce is checking to see kind of when that sunsets there. And then that may determine whether we ultimately bring it into the district, or maybe if we look to that could be a future amendment to the TID district, depending on the timing of when that sunsets, because that does supply a significant amount of affordable housing over on the west side of the city of Fitchburg. Any questions on the TID districts? One thing I will say is it's a lot of work to just put one district together. To be running 3 districts on a parallel timetable track is going to take a lot of work from across multiple departments, and a lot of work that Joyce has already put together, but our planning colleagues, our public works, finance, and everybody legal. That's all involved as part of our team. So if you're trying to reach some of us over the next month or so, and we're a little slow at getting back, it might be because we're bogged down in some of the TIF information that we're all putting together and gathering. So that way we can get it over to Ellers and then get the draft project plan started. The more public part of the process will start in June. And that's when letters will go out to the property owners because their property would be in a rehabilitation district, and then we'll be starting to convene our partners for the Joint Review Board at that time. And we'll keep you updated at future meetings as we progress through that. Then on the housing front, as I mentioned, we've got a scope of services already from Ellers to work on a program of affordable units within market rate. And then Joyce and I, along with our advisors, now I'm switching to the rent-to-own townhome program there. Administration, finance, and legal had asked us to do some more due diligence on kind of the program parameters and kind of the risks to the city and to CETA if we were owning property while that was being developed and during the rent-to-own phase. And so we did some more due diligence with consultants and also checking in with some other nonprofits and potential future collaborators. And what we're going to do is we're going to issue now 2 legal RFPs. One was already envisioned as part of the program, and that was kind of the legal RFP that would look at what would be the documents needed if we were partnering and contracting with a developer to actually build a project for us, and then a management company. So that'll be one legal RFP that'll get issued. But there's also going to be a second one that's kind of an expanded scope of the original work, and that's working with a law firm and legal entity to help us identify more of those program risks and concerns, and to see what those potential liabilities might be for the city, and then how can we maybe minimize or mitigate those as much as possible to protect the city and be good fiduciary stewards of the city resources and dollars there. So I just talked to City Administrator Chad Brecklin yesterday. He gave me the green light that we're going to work with H&A to issue those RFPs. We'll get those back, and then we'll review those with our city attorney, city administration, and decide if we want to proceed with that. Then hopefully once we got that work done, then we would go back to our elected officials in the city council, maybe at a future committee of the whole meeting, to give them an update on all of the due diligence, the legal information that we've gathered, and then hopefully go to them to ask them for a kind of a decision point of do they want us to move forward with trying to pursue a potential pilot program for a 10-unit townhome rent-to-own project out there. So that's kind of where we're at. We got a little delayed when they asked us to do more due diligence, but I think the due diligence has been helpful. We've learned a lot, and we've established some really good connections and conversations with even potential partners that maybe could we contract with them to either do the project or maybe even oversee the program for us, since, of course, we have limited capacity here from a staff resource standpoint. So we'll keep you posted on that one, but that's the next step on the housing front. And Joyce, do you want to talk about our conversation with the WIDA representative, please?
So we had a call, I think it was last week, with WIDA, with an H, to talk about, we had mentioned earlier about the Shorewood Hills model, the market rate units within, or I'm sorry, the affordable units within a market rate project. So we did talk to them about how their oversight worked with Shorewood Hills. And so we got a really good feel for what services they can provide to us, which would be extremely valuable for us and very cost efficient. So if we move forward with doing the affordable, I think we would want to maybe enter into a contract with them to do the oversight, which would be the kind of income qualifications, the reviews of applicants, and then also the inspections that they currently do to make sure that the properties are in good standings as far as maintenance and upkeep. And then during that conversation, we also happened to mention our rent-to-own project. And once again, their ears kind of perked up and wanted to learn a little bit more. And there might be a possibility for us to maybe partner with them on financing. So we want to continue this conversation once we get the okay from the council to move this forward. So stay tuned.
Thanks, Joyce. Then switching over to some development activity updates. At the last council meeting, there was a TIF request by Avante Properties for a new mixed-use project in Uptown Fitchburg. And I'm just bringing up the map here. It's going to be called the Arlo, and it's on lot 55 here, where my cursor is, just east of the railroad tracks, north of East Sherrill Parkway, and west of the Vista Apartments. And there's some geotechnical issues on the site, and there's also an issue with they need to do some dewatering. And so there was a $780,000 TIF request to be able to kind of prep the site to be able to go with a higher density project there. So it's going to be 57 units of market rate apartments, and then there's going to be 2,300 square feet of commercial space. So with the council support, that got approved, and work has already started on the project at that site. The 2,300 square feet of commercial space is going to bring us a cocktail lounge. So one of the first kind of commercial services in the neighborhood. So people are excited about that. And this is, I just got to stop this one. And then I'm going to show you what it's going to look like here. There we go. So this is what the Arlo is going to look like. The other cool thing about this is on the west end, this is where the cocktail lounge is going to be. But there's going to be an indoor-outdoor kind of experience there. I'm going to zoom down here, and you can see there's going to be a little kind of performance kind of stage and shell here that the owner of the cocktail lounge will manage. So there could be bands and entertainment there. And then there's even a food truck kind of parking dock here, so they can bring in different food trucks to kind of serve different events and activities in the area. So one of the things in Uptown Fitchburg under Smart Code is there's supposed to be these places and spaces of kind of energy and activity and outdoor, experiences. So this will start to bring us what we've all envisioned in Uptown, and hopefully is the first of many that will be incorporated throughout the larger 400 acres of the Uptown area there. So really nice looking development there. So again, thanks to the council for the support for the TIF project to help drive this one. Then the other thing I wanted to pop up and show is the Avalon building, just so you can see what that one's going to look like. So this is the one that will be coming along Index Road here in the upper left, 173 market rate units. And that again is Venture Capital is doing that one. So that's Mike and Ned, who we've been working with on North Fish Hatchery Road. And then here in the lower right-hand corner is the Oshala building, mixed-use one. That's just east of UW Credit Union. And then they're in the process of extending Oshala Drive all the way east to Index Road. This development will be ready for occupancy in June of this year. So 170 market rate apartments, and then 10,000 square feet, 10,450 square feet of commercial space. So good things still happening up there in the corridor, and continuing to add to the value that we have in that tax increment district up on North Fish Hatchery Road. Then on a couple of other development projects, the daycare. We've got a daycare that's approved South here in the Fitchburg Tech Campus, they're planning to break ground hopefully in April of this year. That's going to be the learning experience, so bringing us some additional much-needed daycare capacity in Fitchburg. And then Highfield Reserve, which is the new neighborhood that Veridian is doing in Fahey Fields South. They've taken over that whole kind of last phase of Fahey Fields. They will have move-in ready homes already kind of the middle of May. So there will be some twin home units. One in particular, 1451 square feet, is listed for $379. That's a twin unit kind of townhome duplex unit. And then they've got some single family that'll be starting back there at $415 and going up from there as far as the price point. So that'll bring us some additional housing capacity here in Fitchburg. And then on the east side of Highway 14 in Terra Vesta continues to boom over there. They're already moving forward with phase 3 with additional lots. And then we'll have the edge at Terra Vesta, kind of the Texas wraparound building where the parking's in the middle. That I think will be ready for occupancy in June. And then we've got some of the mixed-use commercial buildings right along Lacey Road that are nearing completion and occupancy. And there's going to be a wine kind of boutique and shop over there as far as one of the first commercial businesses that'll be coming in that neighborhood. And then last, I just wanted to let you know we're working with the Latino Chamber of Commerce. They acquired the building at 5262 Verona Road, the former Roughing It in Style building. And we're coordinating with them to hopefully submit in July in the new fiscal year, lend our name as the city of Fitchburg for them to qualify for a community development investment grant. And basically, if they provide $750 in matching funds for reinvestment in the building, we can leverage that to get another $250,000 in a grant from WEDC through the CDI program. So Joyce and I have been working with Jessica and her team at the Latino Chamber, and then hopefully we'll be submitting that in July once the new fiscal year starts. And that would go towards, they need a new roof and some HVAC equipment, and they need to do that first. And then once they get that done, then they'll be able to start to make the investment in the commercial kitchen that they're planning to incorporate in that building. That'll be kind of a training center and a hub for people that are, let's say entrepreneurs looking to start restaurants or food cart operations and things like that, which is one of the key components of their vision for that economic empowerment and entrepreneur and gateway center over there. So we're really excited to be working with them on hopefully getting some grant dollars to help them with their project. I think that's all that I had.
I'll just give a quick update. So Mike and I met last week with the architects, one of the board members, and Dale Sticka about the COPA. Just got a really good update of where they're at with their project, and then also provided them with an update of what's going on in the city. So we had some really good conversations. Just wanted to let you know that they're still planning to move that project forward. It will be a great asset for that neighborhood. So I think that's it.
And I do have one more. I'm just going to flash up one other map here to piggyback on the conversation with Mad Rep here. So as I mentioned earlier, we've got, with ARPA TID money and with the council support, we've got 2 neighborhood plans that are future urban development areas that planning staff, we've already got the RFPs in, and they're in the process of selecting who the consultants will be to lead us through the process of the neighborhood plan. So in the blue area here, we've got the South Stoner Prairie neighborhood, and this is in the Verona School District. And then if you switch over, move over to the rust-colored area, Greenfield here, we're going to be doing this neighborhood plan as well. This is in the Oregon School District. So the RFPs are already in. We'll be selecting the consultant shortly, and then work will begin. And by the end of the first half of 2024, both of these neighborhood plans are envisioned to be completed. And then one thing that we're doing, working with CARPC, Capital Area Regional Plan Commission, is they're going to kind of be involved in this process all along. So hopefully by the time we get to the end of the neighborhood plan project and that gets approved by our council and incorporated within our comp plan, that document then will also serve as kind of what we use for our application submittal to CARPC. In the past, we've usually had to go through the neighborhood plan process and then spend like another 6 months kind of putting together a CARPC application. So I think this is going to help us kind of be a little bit more efficient. And CARPC is kind of using us as a test pilot on this approach and model. So I think that is going to be positive in the end as far as moving things along efficiently to get us some additional land and extend the urban service area. But then thinking out long-term, though, and going back to Gary Becker and looking at some acreage where we could have some larger acreage and sites for business, commercial, and industrial. On the east side of Highway 14 here, if you look at these 3 additional future urban development areas that run north and south, to me, this is a prime area that we ought to be looking at and having that conversation here locally and also regionally with MadRep, because I think this lends itself for an opportunity here along that corridor. The one thing we would need, and I've already been talking to Paul Woodard, our public works consultant, is we're going to need another interchange over here, probably at either Irish Lane or Burn Road. And Paul was the one that kind of led us through getting the approval from DOT for the Lacey Road one. So we're hoping I can convince him, working with the administration, to kind of stay on as a consultant to help us kind of navigate that world. But following up on the MadRep, keep this on your radar screen, because I think as we finish these neighborhood plans and as we talk about a major comp plan update, I think we want to kind of continue the conversation about this potential area and the opportunity over here. And that's all that I have.
Okay, are there any questions for Mike? Were there any other updates? Dan, if you had anything on venture debt?
With the rising interest rates, there's been little or no interest in additional borrowing. One, we just renewed the loan program. One bank did not renew, but they're being taken over by a credit union. So they may come back later. And there's one default, 2 loans, and they tried to settle, and we're turning that over to attorneys for the organization to sue to recover. Not a good sign, but not unexpected either.
Okay.
None of our money's involved.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other updates from committee members? If not, I'll move on to item number 10, which is announcements. Our next scheduled meeting is April 27th, 2023. Move on to adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
That was quick, Jennifer.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. We are adjourned.